Honourable Hekia Parata.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. I'm delighted to be able to participate in this debate because despite the hysterical tone being adopted by the opposition member, New Zealand has a fundamentally sound education system. I have said since I became the Minister of Education that it is top performing for many but not for all, and that it hasn't happened by accident, and nor will it continue without attention. And this government is paying attention. Ever since I became the Minister, it's paying attention. Unlike the assertion by the opposition member that this is a wake-up call, it is not. Our alarm clock rang 5 years ago when we looked at the system we had inherited, from those people on the other side, and that's why we got straight into fixing this. We knew that we had to understand exactly where every child was in our system in order to be able to target resources specifically to them to help address their learning needs right there and then, not wait for 3-year samples, which, yes, are extremely helpful and inform our decision-making. But what it is a call to action, and as I said in my speech to the Iwi Chairs Forum last week, and to which they responded magnificently, this is an endeavour that all of us need to be engaged in, and that means we need to know where our kids are, where they are at in the system, what their particular learning needs are, do we have the resources to support them, and how do we make a difference for each and every one of them. So New Zealand has slipped in the latest PISA rankings. This is serious, but it is not a surprise. And we are serious about fixing this, and that's why our plan is about every part of the education system. At early childhood, which all the research is really clear about, that investing early is investing for life. That is why we have, despite the opposition ignoring the brutal facts of reality, that we have raised investment in early childhood education by 74%. And the reason why we've invested in this is because we trust parents as much as professionals. And there are many parents who deliver great early childhood learning to their children in their own homes, as well as teachers qualified in centres. We are agnostic as to which choice parents make. It is up to parents how and where they decide to send their children to early childhood education. And if that's at home with their parents, we applaud that. If that's in a teacher-led centre, whether kindergarten or kohanga reo, we applaud that. And this government has focused on a target of 98% of our earliest learners participating in early childhood education, and we are now at 95.8%. And we will keep on focusing on what works for which communities. So whether that's a Pacifica language-led playgroup or a kindergarten, then we will support those earliest learners to have that opportunity. And when they enter school, we want them to develop a strong general platform in primary school. We want it understood whether or not they are able to read and write and count at the earliest age, and we want to make a difference as soon as we understand whether that is occurring or not. We've invested $9.7 billion into vote education this year alone, and we've increased that investment every year because we understand how important, how critical education is to every one of our children, and it hasn't been acceptable to us that an average of 4 out of 5 leave senior secondary with an NCEA 2. When we came into government, it was 2 out of 5 Māori. 3 out of 5 Pacifica. We aren't looking at averages, and in fact we have raised achievement ever since 2009. And I get that the members opposite, and one in particular, is not interested in reality or facts or evidence, but actually we have had improvements year on year. And how do we know that? It's because we've invested in a data-rich environment, because we understand that without data, it's just another person's opinion. And we are interested in data and making a difference. And that's why we introduced national standards, because every parent and teacher wanted to know where their child was specifically, more than once every 3 years, but actually also every year and every 6 months is required under this government. But they can also find out how their child is doing on national standards at any time. We're not asking teachers, as has been asserted by the opposition, to do more assessment. We are asking them to use their overall teacher judgments and make a decision how well their children are doing and what we need to do next to improve it, and ensure that their parents understand, because parents want the best for their children and they want to be involved in helping their children to improve. And I do go out to schools. In fact, I have a very structured 40 Friday program, because those are the 40 Fridays in a school year. And I am in schools every Friday somewhere around the country. And I listen to what teachers have to say and I take action as a result of that. Most recently, if the member cared to listen instead of haranguing from that side of the House, most recently it was that professional learning and development wasn't meeting their particular needs, and so I have introduced our review. We heard that they required more maths and science resources, and so we have invested in that. We know that kids do better if they participate early. We know that kids do better if their parents are engaged. We know that kids do better if the community in which their school is located holds high expectations of and for them. And so this year, for the first time, we have published by local authority and rohe the specific achievement of kids, so that those communities can join together in raising achievement for each and every one of them. The 4,015-year-olds who sat PISA last year showed that our best are still best in the world, but that our least capable students are some of the lowest in the PISA countries. And our spread between those who are doing very well and those who are not is one of the widest in the OECD, and we are focused on how we get excellence and equity for all. These kids, these 4,000 kids, unfortunately were not caught by national standards, but they have been caught by our youth guarantee initiatives, by the fees-free places in tertiary institutions, by the increased numbers of apprenticeships, by the vocational pathways that offer opportunities to kids in the primary sector, in the services sector, in manufacturing, in health, and shortly in the creative industries. They will also have greater focus on NCEA too, and we are working with school by school how we raise that achievement. We are prioritising parents by better reporting to them. We are providing better information for the wider community. We are putting more funding into the New Zealand School Trustees Association, which is the most formal and structured way by which over 16,000, mainly parents, volunteer every 3 years to be on the boards of our schools. We've had an 84% increase in their funding this year. The biggest effect on in-school raising achievement is the quality of teaching and education leadership. And we have invested $37.5 million this year into a quality teaching agenda. The cornerstone of that is the transformation of the New Zealand Teachers' Council into the Education Council of Aotearoa New Zealand. Its acronym is EduCans, not EduCan't, so that we can ensure that the professional body of teachers is fit for the 21st century. We've also introducing from next year initial teacher qualifications that strike a much stronger balance between education theory and great classroom practice. We have introduced excellence awards because we want to be able to highlight and spotlight to the community what excellence looks like. And there are many examples of that up and down the country where teachers are creating magic in classrooms every day with their students. We want to highlight that, and most particularly we want to create a more constructive public conversation around education. We want to be able to attract the best and brightest to join the profession, and if all they ever hear is binary oppositional statements about education, then why would they be attracted to do that? So we are investing next year in education education. The member keeps parroting that we've cut the funding. How you can have a 74% increase in early childhood and 40% increase in schooling, and for that to constitute a cut just doesn't bear scrutiny. It's laughable, frankly. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So we want, in fact, it is an example of exactly what I have just been alluding to. We cannot get a constructive education conversation in this country, and until we grow up and start having a constructive education conversation, it will be very difficult to persuade young people to choose teaching as a career. I grew up in a community where teachers were revered, and I was really proud that my father was one of those. And I am proud that my sisters have joined the profession. And I'm proud of all the people I know who have committed their lives to this vocation of teaching. And that's why we've invested $9.7 billion. Actually, I don't denigrate teachers at all. I don't denigrate teachers at all. And can I just...
Order. The member can take a call shortly.
Yes, that would be great. And can I just speak to the particular issue of pronouncing children's names correctly? Can we start with the fact that mine is Hekia Parata? And can we recognise that relationships of respect established between 5-year-olds and the teacher, 10-year-olds and the teacher, 15-year-olds and the teacher actually does start with pronouncing a child's name correctly, whether it's Marianne or Mariana, and I don't see why that should send anyone into a frenzy. It's a basic common courtesy. So, we are working really hard, and the reason we are doing so is because we want... Yes, it is. And I'm not hung up about that because I am a comfortable bicultural New Zealander. No te mea, he ingoa tipuna tēnā no aku tipuna. Ko Patricia I heke mai I aku tipuna no ko Timana, ko taku ingoa Hekia, he ingoa tipuna no Ngāti Porou. So, yes, I am Patricia Hekia Parata, proud of both sides of my heritage, Pākehā and Māori. And I think many New Zealand kids are. So we want to have an education system that both makes our children competitive internationally and globally, but also we embrace those things that are uniquely New Zealand. Our kids, and these things are not measured by PISA, our kids are good at working in teams. Our kids are good at finding creative and innovative solutions to problem solving. Our kids are good at relationships. Our kids are good in the environment. Our kids are committed to fairness and sportsmanship. We want to have an education system that is about kids both being globally competitive and having that Kiwi can-do attitude that is unique to New Zealand. And I am bound and determined that the New Zealand education system will deliver both of those opportunities to every one of our children. And I am proud to be the Minister of Education in the national government, raising the vote investment every year, committed to modernising our education system, making some people uncomfortable with change. Because if we keep doing what we've always done, we will keep getting what we've always gotten. And what we've always gotten hasn't been good enough, and so we're facing forward, informed by what has happened in the past, but really focused on what makes a difference. And funnily enough, opinion and prejudice is outweighed by evidence and research. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity, despite the haranguing of the parrots on the other side of the opposition, to talk about all the great things we have in our education system, but how much better we need to be doing. Mr. Speaker.
Catherine.